The story begins with our main hero, Cross, quietly questioning why he even exists in the first place. And honestly, yeah, that is definitely not the kind of thought a normal person starts the day with. Then, little by little, he introduces his team, explaining that Sophia is a witch capable of using every type of magic. Medil is a priest who can heal any wound. Mary is a thief who can avoid any trap. And Claude is the strongest warrior in history. While Cross himself sadly believes he has absolutely nothing worthy of a hero's party. According to him, everyone around him has talent, abilities, and value, but all he does is drag the others down like some kind of burden. And eventually his frustration boils over as he starts wondering why everyone keeps doting on him so much, despite him being useless in his own eyes. Meanwhile, Cross is lying with his head resting on Medil's lap, as she gently asks if he feels comfortable and even shyly tells him he can touch the bed if he wants, while Mary instantly offers to give him a massage, and Sophia happily hands him a special drink she made to ease his pain. Cross immediately gets irritated and tells everyone to stop messing around with him, before reminding them that Claude is still scouting the area and things could get dangerous if they keep playing around like this. Right then, Claude suddenly returns and asks what everyone is doing, only for Cross to casually admit he was the one saying all that. But then Claude confidently declares that he will personally heal Cross himself, leaving Cross staring at him in complete confusion. After that, Cross starts thinking deeply to himself, realizing that he only defeated around 50 monsters today, while the others each took down nearly 150, so naturally he cannot understand why everyone keeps worrying about him this much. The party simply responds by saying he is a genuinely good person, but Cross awkwardly brushes it off and thinks people only say things like that to someone who has no real special qualities. Oof, yeah, that insecurity hits hard. Still, Cross emotionally decides that he will start working even harder from now on, and before night falls, he volunteers to gather supplies for dinner. Mary immediately insists on coming along with him, but Cross reassures everyone that he can handle it himself, and tells them to rest instead, so eventually he leaves alone while the entire party suddenly becomes silent the moment he walks away. Then Claude quietly asks if everyone noticed how Cross looked earlier, and immediately the whole group starts blushing while talking about how adorable he was. Mary says Cross looked completely exhausted but still stayed kind to everyone. Sophia points out how red his face became earlier and how cute he looked because of it. Claude admits Cross looked incredibly cool and brave while fighting, and Medil shyly reveals that she once went on an inspection mission alone with Cross where she even managed to place her arm over him, before blushing even harder while remembering how Cross personally handed her a drink himself. Then another team member proudly mentions getting a high five from Cross once, and at that point the entire group practically dies from embarrassment because, seriously, how is this not a full-blown crush at this point? Meanwhile, far away from them, Cross notices a sudden explosion in the distance and casually assumes the others must be training since everyone seems unusually energetic today. As he keeps walking, however, he starts thinking about how insanely powerful the Demon King's forces were during today's battle and realizes his party must actually be completely exhausted, which motivates him even more as he tells himself it is time to work harder. The scene then shifts to the entire party sitting around a fire when one member suddenly nervously points out that Cross is taking way too long and wonders if he has been kidnapped, causing the other three to panic almost instantly. Mary even seriously believes it could happen because Cross is just that adorable, while Sophia immediately suggests they should hurry and search for him before casually proposing they burn down the forest to find him faster. Like, what kind of rescue plan is that? Thankfully, before things get any crazier, Cross's voice suddenly echoes nearby as he apologizes for being late, and Medil instantly asks where he has been. Cross calmly explains that he was searching around for ingredients so he could prepare a feast for everyone, and moments later he returns carrying a massive amount of food supplies, leaving the entire party completely shocked. Claude becomes emotional and dramatically claims that Cross's kindness alone has already filled his stomach, after which everyone excitedly gathers together for dinner, while Cross quietly worries to himself that he probably made everyone anxious again. Soon dinner is finally prepared, and the reactions become even more intense as Mary immediately says, "Cross's cooking tastes incredible." Medea claims it is even better than royal court cuisine, and Sophia sadly admits she cannot imagine eating food made by anyone else ever again, while wondering what she will even do once this journey finally ends. Cross simply smiles and tells everyone they are exaggerating, before promising that he will continue cooking for them even after the adventure is over. While Claude proudly declares that if Cross cooks it, he would even eat poisonous mushrooms like they are his favorite meal. Cross instantly panics and asks why he is eating mushrooms that were literally just picked up moments ago. Afterward, Cross reminds everyone that they need to wake up early tomorrow, so they should finally get some sleep. And as the night settles in, Mary quietly thinks about how unbelievably kind Cross truly is, and how much he constantly does for everyone around him. Claude notices Cross drinking a little too much and questions him about it. Medea continues thinking about Cross even in her sleep. Sophia literally dreams about him, and meanwhile our hero spends the middle of the night alone in the forest still training by himself. Cross continues pushing his body harder and harder while thinking that he needs to become faster and stronger because cooking alone will never be enough for him. And deep down, he refuses to stay useless forever. He absolutely cannot accept living like that anymore, so finally Cross raises his sword toward the sky and passionately declares that he wants to stand beside everyone and fight together with them. And this time, no matter what happens, he swears he will never give up on that dream again. Now the scene shifts again, and Claude is quietly sitting there in silence before eventually asking Mary how Cross is doing, to which Mary casually replies that Cross is training again like always, while Medea adds that he will probably keep pushing himself until morning comes, and Sophia worriedly points out that he is definitely going to return completely exhausted again this time. Then Claude suddenly says that if Cross ever admitted something was too difficult for him, they would have abandoned this world long ago. But Mary immediately smiles and says Cross would never say something like that, no matter how hard things become. And hearing that, Claude quietly smiles too, before declaring that this is exactly why they will protect Cross even if it costs them their lives. The scene then changes as Cross explains that their journey continues smoothly after that without any further major danger, while his team protects villages from swarms of monsters, destroys the Demon King's strongholds, and slowly pushes humanity closer and closer toward victory. Eventually, Cross and his party finally stand before one of the four heavenly kings, who proudly introduces himself before the group defeats him as well, causing Mary to excitedly celebrate that all four heavenly kings have finally been destroyed, while Claude emotionally tells Cross that they have truly made it this far, and now the only enemy left is the Demon King himself. Cross then happily realizes that they are finally close to creating a world where travelers no longer have to fear monsters anymore. After that, the scene shifts once again, as Cross and the others return to the kingdom, where crowds of people loudly cheer for the heroes finally coming back to the city, while songs of celebration echo everywhere. The king of the kingdom warmly praises Hero Cross and welcomes the party back, while Claude respectfully bows and thanks the king for the warm welcome, only for the king to casually tell him there is no need to act so formal, and that everyone should relax because they have traveled a long way. Claude then immediately declares that as soon as the party is ready, they will head out to defeat the Demon King, causing the king to promise that the kingdom will provide them with everything they need and urges them to rest until preparations are complete, because the hero's party must be exhausted. However, the king's gaze suddenly lands on Cross as he comments that Cross seems to be carrying quite a heavy burden, and at that moment the people around them begin staring at Cross with disgust while whispering cruel comments about him. Some call him completely useless and say someone like him disappearing would not matter at all, while others wonder how a person like him even managed to stay with the hero party in the first place. Hearing all of this, Cross quietly lowers his head and sadly realizes that even in this country, things are exactly the same for him. Instantly, Claude and the others become furious, but before things escalate, Cross quickly calms everyone down and stops Claude by grabbing his hand and asking him to wait until they leave. The scene then shifts again, as the group talks about finally wiping out the Demon King's kingdom, though Cross jokingly tells them not to say it so casually, like they are simply going out for drinks. Still, Cross quietly explains that if they let every little insult control them, those insults will never truly end, though he also admits that the people criticizing him were not entirely wrong either. Claude immediately rejects that idea and emotionally says that everything only became possible because Cross was by their side, explaining that he himself could only become a hero because of Cross, and that the entire group was only able to become a true hero party thanks to him. Hearing that suddenly leaves Cross blushing in embarrassment, as he starts wondering if maybe there really is something only he can do after all. Then Medea softly reflects on how long this journey has been, and mentions that they have been traveling together for almost an entire year, while Mary laughs and says it somehow feels like the whole adventure ended in just a single moment. Cross then quietly realizes that their journey is finally reaching its end, And soon the scene changes again as the hero party stands before the Demon King's castle itself. Everyone stares ahead while realizing they have finally arrived. Then Cross asks Claude if he will become king once he returns to the kingdom, and afterward he curiously asks everyone else what they plan to do after everything is over. Medivh says she might become a sister at a church. Sophia says she wants to continue researching magic together with Cross, and Mary says she will probably return to the Thieves Guild. Hearing all of this completely shocks Cross because apparently he seriously thought everyone wanted to marry Claude instead. Yeah, poor guy has absolutely no idea what is happening around him. Claude then asks Cross what he personally wants to do after returning home, and Cross happily says there are many things he wants to try, like traveling peacefully without worries, or maybe even opening a diner someday. Then he casually mentions that he might get married too, and the moment those words leave his mouth, the entire hero party looks like their souls just shattered into pieces. Like seriously, the emotional damage is insane. Claude suddenly grabs Cross and suggests they should go back and drink together until morning. Just the two of them, which Cross happily agrees sounds amazing, while the other three immediately insist on joining too. Cross then excitedly suggests they throw a huge party all night after everything is over. And with renewed determination, the heroes decide that in that case they should hurry up and defeat the Demon King first. Right then, the castle doors slowly open as the Demon King welcomes them and reveals that he has already heard about the heroes slaughtering all of his subordinates. Claude confidently responds that the Demon King will die next, but then the Demon King suddenly rises to his feet and commands all the heroes to come at him together. Immediately, Claude charges forward first and swings his sword, but the Demon King effortlessly blocks the attack before counterattacking and injuring Claude. Then Sophia unleashes a magical blast toward the Demon King, while Mary quickly rushes in and attacks with her daggers, and Medivh immediately tells Sophia to strike again. Another magical attack crashes into the Demon King while Claude attacks from below at the same time, and finally a direct hit lands on the Demon King's head. Cross watches in complete shock as the Demon King collapses onto the ground, and Claude happily tells Cross that it is finally over. Right after that, Mary runs over to Cross and proudly asks him to praise her because she tried her best during the fight. But at that exact moment, Cross suddenly notices a strange demonic symbol nearby and instantly realizes the truth about everything. Then, without warning, something violently bursts out from inside Cross's body, badly injuring him as he realizes with complete certainty that his true purpose was always meant for this exact moment. Suddenly, the Demon King rises again and declares that humans have interfered once more, but the cycle of hatred will never end. Claude and the others instantly panic, desperately shouting Cross's name while Medivh rushes forward and tries to heal him, only to suddenly realize in horror that the Demon King's curse is interfering with her healing magic and preventing it from working at all. Hearing that immediately terrifies Sophia and Mary as well, while Claude breaks down and desperately asks why Cross stepped forward to protect someone like him. Cross weakly calls Claude's name in return, and Claude tearfully admits that he feels like he will never be able to achieve anything anymore, because he cannot bear living in a world without Cross in it. Hearing those words causes tears to slowly fall from Cross's eyes as he emotionally realizes that if everyone is crying for him like this, then maybe he really was a lucky person after all. Cross then quietly wishes he could have helped everyone even more before his arm slowly falls lifelessly to the ground. Then, in his fading thoughts, Cross realizes that Cross has died. But suddenly, Cross wakes up again. Tiny glowing dots appear before his eyes, and as he slowly looks around, he sees countless demons kneeling before him and apologizing to him. They explain that because of the previous Demon King's curse, Cross has now reincarnated as a monster himself, and from this point onward, he will live inside the demon realm as a demon. Hearing all of that leaves Cross completely terrified and unable to process what just happened. Now Cross is completely stunned because he cannot understand how he transforms from a hero into a monster in the first place. And honestly, yeah, anyone would be losing their mind right now. He keeps looking around in confusion while wondering where exactly he even is and what is happening anymore because, according to him, they already defeated the Demon King, and after that he clearly remembers dying, so why are monsters suddenly bowing before him like this? Cross is still panicking when another thought immediately hits him, much harder than everything else, and he suddenly starts worrying about whether Claude and the others are safe or not. At the same time, he realizes he has absolutely no information about his current situation, which only makes everything feel even more dangerous. Then suddenly, a voice politely introduces itself, and a girl named Aura says she is happy to finally meet him, and tells him he can simply call her Aura. The moment Cross sees her, he becomes shocked because she looks completely human. But then Aura calmly reveals that she is actually the current Demon King, instantly leaving Cross speechless again. She quickly reassures him that she has no intention of harming him, but Cross immediately becomes confused when she starts referring to him with strange titles and asks who exactly this Saji-sama person is supposed to be, because he believes she clearly has the wrong person. Aura then looks at him in confusion and asks if his name is not Cross, before proudly calling him the Rainbow Sage from the Hero Party. Hearing such an absurdly overpowered title leaves Cross internally screaming because, seriously, where are these names even coming from? Aura then explains that he is known as the mediator and harmonizer of the Hero Party, the man who helped defeat the Demon King despite not having any special powers of his own. Cross immediately rejects that description and insists he was nothing more than dead weight the entire time, while also realizing that misunderstanding after misunderstanding just keeps piling up on top of each other. More importantly, though, he begs Aura to explain the current situation properly. Aura then reveals that the previous Demon King attempted to reincarnate the hero as a demon in order to control him, but because Cross sacrificed himself protecting the hero, the plan failed halfway through and Cross himself ended up reincarnating instead. The moment she says this, Aura quickly bows her head and apologizes because the entire situation happened due to mistaken identity. Afterward, she hands Cross a mirror and gently tells him that looking at his reflection should explain everything. Cross quietly thanks her while thinking about how badly he wants to return to everyone else. But the second he sees his reflection in the mirror, he freezes in shock because the person staring back at him is actually himself. Even Aura looks surprised by his reaction, but then Cross suddenly notices the horns on his head and casually comments that he honestly looks way cooler now than before. Yeah, this man processes trauma in the weirdest possible way. Then Cross curiously asks if monsters actually consider his appearance ugly, only for Aura to blush while quietly admitting that she personally thinks his face looks extremely handsome. After that, Aura explains that Cross is now reincarnated as a demon, a species considered humanity's enemy, but Cross casually responds that he never really held any grudge against demons in the first place. Aura becomes emotional and says she would even be willing to die for him because the situation is that serious, but Cross immediately questions why he would ever kill her when she has not done anything wrong at all. Hearing that leaves Aura quietly impressed, as she says this response is exactly what she expected from him. Then Aura reveals something even more shocking by explaining that 10 entire years have already passed since Cross's death, which naturally leaves him horrified because that's definitely not the kind of information someone casually drops into a conversation. Cross nervously asks how old he even is now, and Aura calmly responds that technically he is 0 years old since this is his new life. The moment Cross hears that, his thoughts immediately jump toward Claude and the others. But before he can continue, Aura quickly changes the topic and suggests they eat first. Soon, the scene shifts to a massive dining table where Aura and Cross sit together surrounded by food, and Cross immediately realizes this is Monster Kingdom cuisine. Aura happily tells him that this is his first meal since being reborn, so he should properly enjoy it. And the second Cross takes a bite, he completely freezes in shock before declaring that everything he ate before this moment suddenly feels fake in comparison. In fact, he becomes so overwhelmed by how delicious the food is that he actually says he is glad he reincarnates as a demon. Then Cross excitedly grabs a piece of meat while wondering how it is so unbelievably soft and asks how the sauce is made, because now he desperately wants to learn how to cook it himself. Aura smiles happily after seeing him enjoy the food and explains that compared to demon cuisine, human food feels extremely rough and simple. While eating, however, Cross quietly admits that he wishes Claude and the others could taste this food too, and Aura casually says she can have another plate prepared if he wants. Cross immediately agrees while internally realizing something important for the very first time. The demons never truly lost to humanity at all, because the hero only defeated the Demon King himself. After that, the scene shifts again as Cross stands on a balcony overlooking the enormous demon city below him, and he becomes shocked after realizing the city is even larger than the human capital. Then another thought suddenly hits him, as he nervously wonders if he is now supposed to fight humans as a demon too. When he asks Aura directly, she calmly reassures him that he will never need to do that, because her true dream is actually to create peaceful trade relations between humans and monsters. Aura then reveals that she wants to build a world where humans and demons no longer fight each other anymore, And hearing this completely stuns Cross because this peaceful future is the exact dream his entire party always wished for together. At that moment, Cross realizes there may still be something meaningful he can do after all. So he calls Aura's name and passionately asks her to let him help make her incredible dream come true. Hearing those words leaves Aura completely speechless because apparently nobody has ever said something like that to her before, and she emotionally asks Cross to lend her his strength. Then the scene shifts again as Claude, Medela, Sophia, and Mary all arrive together at Cross's grave, where the atmosphere instantly becomes painfully heavy. Claude quietly places a massive bouquet of flowers in front of the grave before sadly revealing that it has already been 10 years and 184 days since Cross died. Medela apologizes because she has only managed to visit once every 3 days due to how emotionally difficult everything still feels for her. While Sophia quietly mentions how long it has been since all of them gathered together and wishes Cross is happy wherever he is now. Mary then remembers how much she misses their journey together, and especially Cross's cooking, leaving everyone visibly heartbroken. Claude eventually lowers his head and asks why Cross had to leave them behind like this, before revealing that he wants to report something important to him. Claude sadly admits that he knows Cross never wanted this outcome, but despite that, they can no longer forgive the demons anymore, and plan to wipe out every last one of them. Then the four members of the hero party leave the grave, consumed by anger while declaring that in a world where Cross can finally be protected, demons no longer deserve a place to exist. And just like that, a massive war between humans and demons finally begins. Now Cross keeps thinking about what he can actually do to bring peace to the world because, according to him, he still barely knows anything about demons yet. So before changing anything, he first needs to truly understand them. After that, Cross starts meeting the demons one by one, but every single one of them becomes completely obsessed with him and keeps calling him Saj-sama, leaving Cross internally panicking because he genuinely cannot process anything they are saying anymore. Eventually, he sits down on his bed and starts wondering how any of this is even possible because, in his own eyes, there is absolutely no way he could ever be some legendary sage. In fact, he thinks he is more of an idiot than anything else and cannot even live up to the expectations people already have for him. Then Cross starts wondering what a sage even means in the first place because there are still way too many things he wants to understand. Right after that, he suddenly asks Aura what exactly his race even is, and Aura explains that he belongs to a race called Necronia, a species born from a mixture between the dead and demons. Hearing that instantly shocks Cross because the idea of being dead while still alive sounds absolutely insane. But Aura calmly explains that there are many different types of Necronia, and that Cross belongs to the category revived through magical power. However, Aura quickly warns him that he is only a mixed breed and not immortal, so he should never push himself too far, which immediately makes Cross panic because he thinks his biggest advantage just disappeared. Aura then reassures him by explaining that his race possesses regenerative abilities, and hearing that makes Cross instantly curious enough to literally stab his own hand with a knife, just to test it. Yeah, definitely not the smartest experiment. Aura immediately stops him and warns him not to overdo things while explaining that Necronia is an extremely rare race with very little information available about it, to the point where most knowledge about them only exists in legends. Then Aura starts mentioning ancient stories, claiming that Necronia once pioneered the demon lands and even guided the world toward peace itself. Hearing all of that leaves Cross overwhelmed because somehow even more expectations have now landed on his shoulders. Still, he quietly thinks that responsibilities like these originally belonged to Claude, but now he wants to do his best too. Aura softly smiles and tells him not to stress too much, because they are only legends after all. But before the conversation can continue, someone suddenly knocks on the door. A knight introduces herself as Knight Libel, and Aura immediately asks what happened so suddenly. Libel then says she has something important to discuss while Cross casually drinks tea nearby, but the moment she notices him, she coldly declares that humans should never be allowed to stay this close to the Demon Lord. Hearing such a direct insult instantly catches Cross off guard, and honestly, it hurts even more coming from a demon knight instead of a human. Aura immediately defends Cross by explaining that he is a victim of the previous Demon King's schemes and deserves proper respect, but Libel stubbornly argues that humans are deceptive traitors and claims Cross will eventually turn his sword against the Demon Lord too. Aura quickly orders her to stop, then firmly reminds Libel that she is the one standing beside Cross and placing her trust in him. Watching this leaves Cross thinking about how unbelievably loyal Aura is, Then Cross quietly asks Aura what he should do, but before she can answer, Libel suddenly demands that Cross address Aura as Demon Lord properly or she will kill him. Cross internally wonders if threatening people is just a normal knight greeting here or something. Aura apologizes for her knight's behavior, but Cross simply smiles and says, loyalty toward one's master is not a bad thing. Then Aura suddenly comes up with an idea, while Libel immediately declares that this is the perfect opportunity for Cross to prove to the citizens that he is trustworthy. Right after that, Libel points directly at Cross and challenges him to a duel. Cross immediately becomes nervous, but Libel boldly tells him to win and prove himself properly. Aura instantly objects and says she will never allow something this reckless, but Cross unexpectedly accepts the duel anyway. Aura desperately tells him not to make impulsive promises like this, yet Cross calmly explains that if the demons never properly recognize him, then he will never be able to help make Aura's dream come true. The scene then shifts to a massive arena-like auditorium, completely packed with demons, all of whom are placing bets on Cross while Aura quietly watches everything unfold. Seeing the overwhelming excitement around the Sage title leaves Aura realizing just how massive Cross's reputation truly is, though she also worries because she never wanted to pressure him this much. At that moment, Aura's personal maid quietly points out that in the human world, Cross was only known as the dead weight of the hero party, while his opponent Libel is infamous as the traitorous knight, a warrior powerful enough to rival the generals of the previous Demon King's army, which was considered the strongest force in history. The maid nervously admits she honestly cannot see any chance of Cross winning at all, but Aura calmly says they should simply watch what happens. Meanwhile, Cross is internally panicking because he never imagined this duel would become such a massive event, and he even starts regretting acting way cooler than he actually felt earlier. Then Libel stares directly at him and mocks the pathetic expression on his face before sarcastically asking him not to tell her his knees are already shaking. Cross nervously denies it, but Libel coldly warns him not to put on an embarrassing fight because the dignity of the Demon Lord is also involved now. The duel finally begins, and Libel instantly charges forward while swinging her sword directly at Cross, but Cross barely manages to dodge the attack before quickly retreating backward and realizing just how unbelievably fast she is. He immediately understands that he needs to create distance somehow, so he quickly escapes farther away, only for Libel to mockingly ask whether a so-called sage really plans on running forever. Then, without warning, she suddenly creates a magical orb and launches it straight toward Cross, leaving him shocked because apparently she can use magic on top of swordsmanship too. Right after that, Libel starts bombarding him non-stop with magical attacks while reminding him that there are no heroes here to protect him or fight in his place anymore. Another fireball crashes directly into Cross as Aura's maid desperately suggests stopping the fight immediately. But Aura calmly explains that Cross has always been extremely conscious of how other people view him, and because of that harsh environment, he must have developed incredible observational talent. Aura then begins explaining that Cross possesses eyes capable of discerning every movement, eyes that witness the greatest battles in the world, and that the Demon Lord's party would never be foolish enough to carry true dead weight beside them. According to Aura, Cross is genuinely a real member of the hero party, and she can clearly see it herself. Meanwhile, Cross continues enduring the relentless attacks while Aura emotionally realizes that despite never being acknowledged properly, he desperately spent his entire life trying to keep up with everyone around him. And now, finally, the man who was never exiled prepares to strike back. Now the fight between Cross and Libel continues non-stop, while even the demons sitting in the audience start admitting that Libel's destructive power is absolutely terrifying. And honestly, to everyone watching, it already looks like this battle is about to end in a completely one-sided massacre. Cross keeps getting injured over and over while people in the crowd begin questioning whether the legendary sage is actually this terrible at fighting. Meanwhile, Libel continues raining down massive fireballs while coldly commenting that the battle will probably end through magic alone because this fight is becoming unbelievably boring. However, in the middle of all that chaos, Cross suddenly charges directly toward Libel, instantly surprising her, and right then a tiny stone suddenly flies toward her. Libel initially assumes it is some kind of counterattack, only to realize Cross is literally just throwing rocks at her. She immediately mocks him for being pathetic and starts wondering if all he can do is hide and stall for time, but then suddenly dozens of stones start flying toward her one after another. Libel confidently laughs and says attacks like these would not even make her flinch, while angrily asking what exactly Cross is trying to accomplish here. Then more stones continue flying toward her, irritating her even more, so she unleashes another huge wave of fireballs toward Cross. But at that exact moment, Cross suddenly rushes through the explosions with his sword drawn, causing Libel to realize that he intentionally used her own explosions as cover to get close to her. She immediately praises him for being surprisingly clever for such a tiny insect, before pulling out her sword and declaring that now that he finally stepped into her range, this will become his grave. Instantly, Cross charges forward, but Libel swings her blade first and completely slices off one of Cross's hands. The moment that happens, even Aura becomes shocked, while Cross feels unbearable pain shooting through his body. But before Libel can react, Cross suddenly slams directly into her shoulder and points out that she underestimated him and swung too early. Then, using his remaining hand, Cross instantly swings his sword upward and knocks Libel's weapon flying into the air before stopping his blade directly in front of her throat. However, Libel immediately raises her other hand and creates a magical orb, while arguing that losing her sword alone does not mean she has lost the battle yet. Before things escalate further, Aura suddenly shouts that the fight is over and officially declares Cross the winner. Libel immediately tries protesting and insists she can still continue, but demon guards quickly rush in and pull her backward while she angrily screams that she is not lost yet and demands they let her go. Meanwhile, Cross quietly stands back up and internally sighs in relief because his strategy actually worked somehow. Then he suddenly notices the entire crowd chanting his name while excitedly calling him cool and saying they knew he would win because he truly lived up to the expectations of a hero party member. Hearing all of that leaves Cross quietly smiling because, for the very first time, he feels like his previous life was not completely meaningless after all. Soon the scene shifts again to a hospital room, where Aura rushes over to Cross in panic and asks if he is alright before scolding him, because she specifically warned him not to overdo things. Cross simply smiles and casually points out that his arm will regenerate anyway, but Libel immediately says they still have no idea whether his joints and nerves will heal properly or not. Hearing that instantly terrifies Cross because now he starts imagining himself permanently crippled. Then Cross nervously asks Aura what they should do, only for Aura to suddenly excitedly point out that his arm is already growing back. Cross looks over in shock and realizes his arm truly is regenerating, though at the moment it is still tiny and incomplete. Aura becomes completely amazed and admits she has never seen regenerative power this incredible before. Right then, Libel storms into the room angrily while demanding to know why she lost despite clearly being far stronger than Cross. Aura immediately tells her she is acting like a stubborn, sore loser, and insists she did not truly lose like that, but surprisingly Cross agrees with Libel and admits she is correct. Cross calmly explains that the entire outcome only happened because of Libel's carelessness and that he merely exploited a small opening. Libel immediately denies ever having such weaknesses, but Cross points out that everyone has them, even Claude, though he also admits he himself never managed to defeat Claude. Then Cross openly says the only reason he won at all was because he sacrificed his own hand to create that opportunity before honestly admitting that Libel is incredibly powerful. Hearing praise like that leaves Libel silent despite still looking furious, while Aura becomes deeply emotional watching the conversation unfold. Then Cross suddenly asks Libel if she would be willing to trust him, but Libel angrily replies that the duel was only a combat bet and refuses to acknowledge anything beyond that. Cross simply changes the topic and asks her to at least allow him to help with Aura's dream. Aura immediately says he does not need to force himself to work for her, but Cross reminds her that he already promised he would help make her dream come true. Hearing that causes Libel to admit that although his attitude is strange, it is also somehow admirable. Then Libel suddenly suggests to Aura that perhaps they should entrust that matter to Cross instead. Aura hesitates because the situation is extremely risky, and she is not even sure Cross is suitable for it, but at the same time she admits there is nobody else they can truly trust with the mission either. Finally, Aura explains that as the Demon Lord, she has an important request for Cross. She reveals that there are still many demons opposing her policy of coexistence with humans, specifically the remnants of the previous Demon King's army, who have now formed a dangerous new faction capable of launching a coup at any moment. Aura then asks Cross to suppress them, though Cross hesitates and questions whether it is truly right to subjugate them like this. Aura sadly replies that there is simply no other choice. Then she adds one more thing and tells Cross to take Libel along with him on the mission. instantly causing Libel to angrily question why she has to go together with this guy in the first place. Soon the scene shifts again as Cross and Libel sit together on top of a rocky cliff while Cross quietly observes the area and concludes that this is most likely the enemy's hideout. Meanwhile, Cross looks completely focused, while Libel stands there looking extremely annoyed beside him. Here, Cross takes out the food and says, "The Demon Lord's castleware is amazing, that it keeps food warm even after a long time has passed." And seeing the hot meal, Cross quietly wishes he had this back when he was traveling with his hero party, because wouldn't that have made everything so much easier? And just then, Libel questions why Cross is relaxing in a place like this when the enemy base is literally around the corner, angrily asking if he is going soft and if this is happening because he is the one who defeated her and got interested in the Demon Lord's will. But Cross calmly explains that it is nothing like that, and that no one can fight properly on an empty stomach. And as both of them look at the food, Libel's mood suddenly changes as she happily says she wants to eat and asks for more because it tastes really good, making Cross smile as he comments on how quickly her heart changed and says he is glad she likes it. After which Libel suggests that Cross should become the royal chef for the Demon Lord and cook for him from now on, and Cross sarcastically notes that she is clearly saying this for her own benefit before saying he will go check the hideout again. And while observing through binoculars, he recalls that they were told to defeat the enemies, but admits he would rather avoid a fight if possible until he suddenly sees someone coming out of the enemy base and instantly feels like he has been spotted, leaving him shocked and wondering how someone could detect him from such a distance. Like, seriously? What is going on here? So he runs back to Libel and urgently says they need to turn back. But while running, a voice from behind identifies him as Aura's lackey, which makes Cross panic and wonder how this person arrived so quickly. And he remembers Aura once saying that although their enemies do not have many members, there is one leader they must be careful of, Gustar, the one known as Faster Than the Wind, who now recognizes Cross as the famous sage everyone talks about. And before they realize it, Cross and Libel find themselves inside enemy territory where Cross keeps thinking they were practically invited in, and if they are not careful, everyone might jump on them at once. So what should they do now, as Libel begins to pull out her sword, but Cross tells her to stay calm, and she questions why he is stopping her when they came here to defeat them, and asks if he plans to disobey the Demon Lord's orders, to which Cross explains that creating peace between humans and demons is not easy, and if they keep fighting, this dream will never come true. Smiling as he suggests they resolve this peacefully and move Aura's dream one step forward, then walking up to Gustar and asking why he is opposing Aura, and Gustar explains he wants to roam freely across the entire continent, and for that he would have to wipe out humanity, which Cross says is unnecessary. But Gustar doubts this is possible and explains the massive biological power gap between humans and demons, saying humans will never accept the imbalance and will try to regulate demonic power for the sake of equality, which is exactly what he does not want, while Libel sides with Gustar and says humans always betray, making Cross look at her in disbelief because wasn't she on their side? And Gustar declares that if Cross wants him to listen, he must prove he is faster, causing all the demonic monsters to smile as Gustar laughs at the idea that such a person might even exist. And Cross proposes a race saying if he wins, Gustar must listen, thinking this might be his only chance. And surprisingly, Gustar agrees as the surrounding demons begin talking excitedly like it is some kind of celebration with fireworks going off, prompting Libel to wonder if this is a festival, while Cross looks at Gustar and wonders why demons make everything so dramatic. Yeah, that's definitely not normal. And the scene shifts to the starting line where Cross apologizes for being late, and Gustar explains the simple rule that at the top of the hill, there is a tree, and whoever touches it first wins, both getting ready as the race starts instantly, and Gustar shoots forward at incredible speed while Libel points out that Cross is already behind, and the demons cheer that their boss has won, but suddenly Cross stretches out his hand, and a rope appears wrapping around Gustar's horse-like body, dragging Cross into the air as Libel shouts that this is cheating, and Gustar demands to know what he is doing and tells him to let go, while Cross calmly notes this is not against the rules, until a huge rock drags across the ground and smashes into Cross's face, sending him flying upward as Gustar warns he will die like this. But Cross says he wants to change the world, and this is nothing because he has already died twice, making Gustar pause and question this desire to change the world as he explains many of his friends were killed by humans, and asks why he should tolerate this for humanity, pointing out that Cross is still human even after reincarnating and only cares about humans, which Cross denies by saying many demons and humans alike have died, and he himself is stuck in this cycle and things cannot move forward like this, insisting they can all live happily together hand in hand. But Gustar angrily calls this unrealistic dreaming and mocks him for thinking he can win with such tricks. And Cross admits he cannot win this race alone before grabbing a firework and rubbing it against the ground until it explodes, and the blast jerks the rope forward, launching him ahead as he shouts to Gustar to become his friend, and crashes straight into the tree, making Gustar call him an idiot for bursting a firework like that just to fly forward. While Cross casually mentions his amazing regeneration, causing Gustar to laugh and admit no one does something like that, then reminding Cross that he promised to show an extraordinary view. And as Cross smiles, Gustar says he liked it and agrees to follow him and join his team, calling him the mighty Rainbow Sage, to which Cross gently replies that he should just call him Cross. The scene shifts to the human kingdom where a royal worker arrives, formally reports that the term's accounting report is concluded, and takes his leave, while Claude mutters to himself with sarcasm about titles like Humanity's Savior, Humanity's Guardian, King of Kings, then questions what he is even doing and why he is protecting humans when perhaps humanity should be destroyed. And suddenly a knife flies toward him, which he casually catches as Mary scolds him for saying such foolish things, reminding him that Cross had been thinking like this for a long time too, and that a world Cross risked his life to protect cannot simply be destroyed, making Claude admit he knows this and apologize, saying he might just be tired, as Mary exhales in relief and gently asks what happened to make him this exhausted, even teasingly offering comfort with her presence before he awkwardly tells her not to joke like that because she does not feel that way anyway, and then he points out she has no intention toward anyone except Cross, prompting Mary to say they should get to the point and reveal that she wants to meet Cross's parents, which instantly angers Claude as he reminds her they promised never to go near them because they would only bring trouble, but Mary insists he should at least listen since she came first, explaining that Cross always considered them true friends from the bottom of his heart, and mentioned Claude in his letters not as a hero, but simply as Claude, recalling the stupid things they did together, the fun they had, the times they got stuck, which makes Claude emotional enough to start crying. And then Mary adds another piece of news that Mediel and Sophia left for monster territory a few days ago, making Claude abruptly stand and declare that they are definitely up to something. And when Mary asks if she should come along, he says that without Cross he does not feel they need to stay together, but she reminds him they met at Cross's grave. So he finally agrees and says they should go and destroy the monsters, and the scene shifts again to Cross, Gustar, and the demons celebrating where Libel angrily asks what they are doing when they are supposed to be on a mission, while Gustar tells her not to be so strict since a celebration after a battle is necessary, which only makes Libel insult his horse-like face as he clarifies only his body is like a horse, not his face, but she insists even his face looks like one and calls it gross, until Cross arrives with food and tells them to stop because he made this and they should eat, which annoys Gustar as he asks why the star of the show is cooking, while Libel immediately starts eating, and Cross explains he was always interested in monster cuisine, so they taught him, causing a demon to protest that they cannot accept this, but Gustar says this is simply the result of the contest, and they should not say such things, though some still complain that this cannot count since Cross took advantage of their boss's manliness. And then Gustar puts a hand on Cross's shoulder saying he has a good idea, and the next moment, tears run from Cross's eyes and nose as he is seen riding Gustar like a mount while all the demons cheer again, and Libel watches in annoyance thinking everyone here must be idiots, and wishing she could just go back to Aura quickly, while Cross internally praises himself for somehow surviving this without vomiting. Of all places, why this? And Gustar loudly pats his back saying he really has guts, which instantly makes Cross throw up anyway, and Libel arrives calling this a gathering of fools and mocks Cross for still being so pathetic, making him wonder if she is drunk, but she slaps his face and denies it before grabbing his neck and saying, "There is no drink strong enough to make her drunk," while Cross claims he himself is completely drunk, and Libel starts forcing him to drink more, and later at night in an open field, Cross sits quietly when Gustar comes, and says there are still some remnants nearby and if he meditates they might be able to communicate, making Cross say that if they talk, they might understand each other better, and increase their allies because a world without conflict is not just a dream, though Gustar doubts it will be that simple, and mentions a troubling monster party led by a powerful fire dragon named Dryog, who is stronger than all other remnants and sees humans as nothing but food, which Libel says she has heard about and believes Aura must know too. And Cross confidently says that with Gustar's connections and Libel's strength, this might work. But Libel tells him he should do something as well. So Cross explains that if they unite the monsters' opinions, perhaps even Claude and Aura could have a discussion, which Libel immediately rejects by saying heroes would never listen. Yet Cross insists that if they talk, Claude will understand because he is truly a good man. And Gustar adds that he heard the hero has disappeared from the kingdom, surprising Cross, who asks what he means. But suddenly a voice cries for help as a wounded monster arrives, begging Gustar for assistance, revealing he is from Dreyag's group, and panicking that the hero is attacking them. And moments later, the fire dragon collapses dead as Claude stands over the body and declares that he dedicates this dragon's death to Cross. The scene shifts into the past where Cross cooks and casually wonders if eating the same food every day does not get boring, then tells Claude that when they reach another city they will buy something properly good to eat. But Claude replies that food made by Cross's hands is the most luxurious thing for him, making Cross smile at how nicely he speaks, and then the scene snaps back to the present as Claude says he wants to eat food made by Cross because everything else tastes completely tasteless. And as he lifts his sword, Cross looks at him, and Claude's eyes meet Cross. But Claude then looks at the surrounding monsters and says they are demons after all, and that nothing else really matters, prompting Cross to urgently tell him to wait and recognize that it is him, Cross, explaining there is no need to fight monsters anymore because, unlike the previous demon lord, Aura does not want conflict. But suddenly Cross's arm is cut off, shocking both Libel and Gustar, as Claude angrily warns the demon not to speak about Cross like that, and kicks Cross so hard he flies backward, and Cross, struggling, explains that something happened to him, and this is the curse of the previous demon lord, that he became a monster but inside he is still the same human with all his memories intact. Yet Claude swings his sword again in rage and begins describing how Cross never had such a foolish-looking face, saying Cross's face used to be round and soft with cute eyes and straight hair that truly represented him. While Cross almost helplessly asks if he does not look better now and reminds Claude that he was the one who asked him to join the party, and that he remembers everything, recalling how Mary taught him swimming at the port town, how Sophia and Medivh gave him water in the desert, how Claude used to eat the delicious food he made, and how everyone saying anything is fine is actually troublesome, even reminding him of their promise to drink until morning and inviting him to drink now. But another powerful kick hits Cross as Claude says a demon that can read human memories disgusts him even more, claiming that if reincarnation truly existed he would have tried it himself long ago. And at that moment, magical blasts strike Claude as Libel attacks, declaring that the hero is nothing but an obstacle in Aura's dream and saying that since he killed the demon lord, no one would complain if she killed him. But Claude instantly grabs Libel by the head and drives his sword into her. And just as he is about to kill her, Cross thrusts his hand forward and loses it again while Gustar quickly rescues Libel, and Claude steps in front of Cross, placing his sword at his neck, but then suddenly pauses, staring at him and asking who he really is and why he feels such overwhelming anger, admitting his heart feels restless before pulling his sword back and saying that is enough and he no longer desires to kill him, warning Cross never to appear before him again, or he will destroy every monster without losing, as Cross lies on the ground and Claude walks away. And the scene shifts to a hot spring, where Dreyag the Fire Dragon, Cross, and Gustar bathe together while the Dragon Master expresses gratitude for being rescued. And Gustar comments that, as expected from a dragon's vitality, he was not actually close to dying, while Cross sadly says Claude did not even recognize him, prompting Gustar to bluntly ask how long he plans to mope over this because it is pathetic, reminding him that even Dreyag has now become their ally, as the dragon promises that if he meets the hero again, he will pay him back, and Gustar adds that Cross is trying to build a world where they do not fight humans, which makes the dragon admit it might be possible since his comrades were close to death, and he will not report this recklessly, but Gustar says this is exactly why he thought it would be difficult, because persuading humans might be even harder than persuading monsters, and when Gustar asks if this was too much for Cross, Cross firmly replies that even if they have only met once like this, he will not give up, and he will convince Claude that he really is Cross because as his best friend, he is the only one who can do it. The scenes now shift straight into the Demon Kingdom, and right away Aura looks relieved, knowing everyone made it back safely, and honestly, after everything that just happened, that relief feels earned. She then explains that she has already heard the full report, and apparently nobody expected them to return after becoming allied with the remnant forces. Then Gustar suddenly steps forward and makes it very clear that people should not misunderstand him, because he is not following the Demon Lord at all. He is only following Cross, and yeah, that kind of loyalty after barely meeting someone? Even Aura looks genuinely impressed for a second. After that, Aura praises Libel too for doing well, but Libel quietly admits that she merely lost her way again, and that this is already the second time it has happened, which honestly does not sound very reassuring. Then Cross suddenly remembers Claude's words about exterminating the monsters, and immediately the tension changes because now the real question appears, are they actually heading toward a war against humanity? Aura calmly explains the current state between humans and demons, saying things are economically stable and their relations with the maritime merchant nations are surprisingly well maintained. However, the territories surrounding the Hero Kingdom and the old Demon Lord's castle are still heavily anti-monster. Cross immediately wonders if those nations attack them, but Aura explains that the attacks lacked any real intensity, and then she reveals something far more suspicious. Shortly after Cross's group encountered the hero Claude, the other party members were seen separately across the nation, and if this had truly been war, they would have moved together as one united party. Instead, this feels personal, and naturally Cross starts wondering why they would even do something like this in the first place. That is when Aura quietly drops the answer that hits the hardest, explaining that they are most likely searching specifically for Cross. For a moment, Cross completely falls silent because he genuinely believed he was protecting everyone, but now he starts wondering if all he actually did was make them suffer even more. Then anger suddenly takes over him, and he declares that he has to tell them he is alive no matter what happens. Aura then explains that 8 years of peace have made the monsters complacent, and that all monster races need to unite quickly, while Cross immediately declares that he will simply make everyone his ally. Aura quickly warns him not to overdo it, and meanwhile Guster points out that dealing with both the remnant forces and the opposition will not be easy at all. Nearby, Libel just silently stands there until Cross reminds her that she once saved him and asks if she will come with him too. But before she can even respond, Gustar suddenly blurts out that the mummy should not become the mummifier. And honestly, what does that even mean? Even the atmosphere pauses for a second there. Then Gustar confidently announces that since this is his first time in the capital in ages, he will handle the scouting himself, while Aura internally panics over how unbelievably terrible their coordination already is. And honestly, fair point. A little later, Aura announces that they have arrived at the treasury and explains that their liege is waiting before ordering someone to guide them through the Mercurius treasury. Cross immediately looks confused after seeing the person standing there, because that woman is apparently not Aura's maid. And then the maid suddenly mentions watching Cross's recent match, where he subdued Dreg. She dramatically praises the sight of the weak confronting and crushing the strong, before instantly turning toward Libel, and verbally destroying her instead for underestimating opponents and losing so pathetically before demanding that she atone for it. Aura quietly explains that this woman used to be Libel's superior, while the maid herself wonders when Libel plans to finally grow up already. At that point, Cross awkwardly smiles and lightly asks her to go easier on Libel, because she already looks like she is melting from embarrassment. Aura quickly changes the topic and tells everyone to enter the treasury, and the moment they walk inside, Cross is left completely speechless by the sheer quality, quantity, and overwhelming amount of ether filling the place. Aura proudly explains that this is their greatest treasury, while meanwhile, the maid practically starts worshipping the treasures around her like she has entered heaven itself, admiring every single item as if each one is personally declaring itself the most valuable thing in existence. Aura quietly admits that the woman is completely obsessed with treasures, and Cross whispers that she honestly does not seem like a very reliable guide. But Aura explains that despite everything, nobody knows this place better than her. Then Aura asks Cross what type of weapon he can use, and Cross explains that Mary taught him many different fighting styles, meaning he can use almost any weapon, although if he had to choose, he would definitely prefer a sword, and maybe even a dagger too, but absolutely nothing flashy because, yeah, glowing legendary weapons sound cool until they reveal your location every 5 seconds. He then mentions that something similar to Claude's sword would be ideal, and soon his attention lands on 3 swords nearby. After asking Aura about one of them, she casually explains that it is merely mass-produced and not something she would recommend, But Cross immediately rejects that idea because to him, that sword is Claude's sword. Aura then reveals that the blade originally belonged to the hero who defeated the previous Demon Lord, which causes Cross to briefly pause in surprise before his attention shifts toward a dagger called ataraxia. The maid immediately notices his interest and explains that, as expected, the sage's keen eyes would naturally notice interesting artifacts, while Cross internally realizes that her strange big sister-like demeanor has suddenly returned again. However, the maid continues explaining that despite being rare, the weapon is not actually considered a good sword because it is defective. It is a living weapon that grows alongside its wielder, evolves with them, and even changes form to match its owner. But unlike normal weapons that simply make their user stronger, this one develops together with them instead. Even after hearing all of that, Cross immediately grabs the sword and decides to take it anyway, causing the maid to stare at him in disbelief as she wonders whether he even listened to anything she just explained. But Cross simply lifts the blade and quietly says that together with this sword, he will become even stronger. Aura softly smiles and comments that the sword is honestly just like Cross himself before hoping the two of them become good partners. As Cross silently stares at the blade, a sudden memory echoes inside his mind, and the scenes shift into the past where Claude is handing his childhood sword over to Cross. Cross immediately refuses because he cannot accept something that precious, but Claude insists on giving it to him anyway. Then Mary suddenly complains that Claude always gets every advantage first. Sophia pulls out a robe and offers it to Cross too. Mary offers her dagger as well, and then Medea casually decides that she might as well offer her own body instead, causing Cross to instantly turn red in embarrassment while awkwardly thanking everyone, and yeah, that conversation went downhill insanely fast. Back in the present, Cross quietly reflects on how dependent he used to be on everyone else, before telling himself that he needs to become independent. Then, with renewed determination, he decides that he will become stronger for everyone's sake, and immediately suggests finding Claude right away. But before they can leave, Aura stops him because she has one request first. She wants Cross to attend their educational institution for a few days, and apologizes for the sudden urgency, explaining that it is considered a citizen's duty. Cross simply smiles and says it is completely fine, because now he is technically a monster too, and then he surprisingly becomes excited about the idea of attending school, since as a human he never even got the chance to experience one before. However, just when things finally seem normal for once, Aura casually reveals that the institution is actually a kindergarten, and now Cross is literally spending his time playing around with tiny monster children. Like, seriously, of all places, why here?
Here I am, know it's been a while.